Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of Big Board Battles. Coming here with a very special edition of the show. Today we are previewing the new rules for Undying Dynasties. Yay! There's been a couple write-ups in the forums, but for those of you who do not frequent the forums or those who prefer to have a video to watch, you can go through bit by bit and see what the point costs are, what the differences are. They have graciously allowed me to do a sneak peek, kind of a day early preview here. So that being said, let's get right down to it. We have the Undying Dynasties new army book here. I'm of course using the light version, not the full version they have, because one, it's easier to read, and two, this is what they gave me. So here we go. Couple general things to remember before we go through this is there's been some changes as well to the magic paths, which we'll go through, and also to the basic rule book in general. And so it's important when going through these changes to keep that in mind, that all the armies have had their power levels reduced for the most part, and ours isn't an exception. I don't think. I think we were hit less hard than other people, but it's different, and it's going to take a little bit of getting used to. And the major difference, and one thing you're going to look through there, and we're going to go through, and you're going to be like, oh my goodness, that's so many points. Well, all the point costs across the board before any adjustments were made were doubled. So just keep that in mind. So without further ado, let's get through this. Okay, starting with these army-wide rules. There's been a couple of changes, some major ones. Evoked is now a new style of raising that we have. Instead of rolling dice, you simply raise the amount of the evoked amount that the unit has. The only issue with this is it can only be invoked, I guess you'd say, by the spell Evocation of Souls. It's a trait spell in the new Evocation lore. And we'll go through the magic in a bit and talk about that. But what this does is it makes our raising, you're never going to roll low. In the most cases, it hit on the high side. So, for example, if you had 1d3 plus 1 for chariots, now the raise value is 4. The evoked value, is 4. And so it just takes the luck out of it and reduces the randomness. The Hierophant rule is still there, and we are locked into a single lore yet again. Evocation is the lore we are put into, and that is unfortunate. I feel Evocation is our weakest lore, despite it being the only way we have to raise models. And the fact that we have to take one, it feels like a tax, especially since all the wizards got a price increase for the most part. Dust to Dust, no real changes except for instead of having a wizard using sands, you have to have a wizard using evocation. So there is that. Undead Constructs, not really a change there. They still have that Dust to Dust crumbling ability where they crumble one less. So that's nice. Undying Will is an interesting change here. Let's see what it says. A pharaoh with this rule may grant weapon skill 6 to all undead models in its unit, and a no mark grants weapon skill 5. And they choose to do so at the start of any round of combat. Now, if the character is mounted on a Towering Presence, and that's just, Towering Presence is a new code for large target. So when you read Towering Presence, think large target. You can confer it onto someone within 6 inches. So no real changes with Undying Will. It's just a rewording. It still works the same. And that's kind of the theme of this update, is they didn't really do any major changes to the armies themselves and how they work. just mild adjustments here and there for the most part. For the most part. If you go to some of the other forums, you can see that some of the adjustments they made weren't quite so minor, but is what it is. Necromantic Aura, same as it ever was. Mummy's Curse, also same as it ever was. Underground Ambush is a little bit different. They've done away with scatter dice, and you'll see in the basic rulebook coming out that there's no longer a scatter dice for things like catapults, and also with Underground Ambush. Instead, you're just going to roll a d6, and on a 5+, it'll stay where it is. Now, they still use a scatter dice for random movement, but instead of rolling to hit, it's just on a 5+. If you still want to use your artillery dice, I don't think anyone's going to be mad at you. So there you go with that. Okay. Armory, nothing changed. The Commander, the Terracotta and Lord of the Barrel Legion were kept the same. Barrel Legion, they have models with towering presence are now unallowed, which is large target. So nothing changed in practice there. Okay, let's go to magical items where there were a few changes, and let's go through a few of them. Scourge of Kings. Now, again, look at the points, and you're like, oh my goodness, everything's so expensive now. It was just doubled, so calm down. It'll be okay. Scourge of Kings, it went down for the Lord level, for the Pharaoh, and it went up for the everything else. Basically, you have Strength 5 and Armor Piercing 1. And every successful to hit roll with this weapon inflicts 2 hits instead of 1. So, it's nice. I'm not sure if your strength can be modified from that, or if it's just always Strength 5. I would guess that it would be always Strength 5. But that's just me guessing here. Crown of the Pharaohs works like it always has. Instead of giving the models ballistic skill, it's just ballistic skill 3 to all undead units. And again, it's 90 points. So there's that. Now, Sandstorm Cloak is entirely different. It used to give you a hard target in the unit you're with. Now it's only on infantry, and you get Fly 7. So that's neat if you want to mess with that. I wouldn't, simply because I can't think of a model I'd want to, for the Undying Dynasties at least, that I want to have flying around on his own so he could be targeted. Book of the Dead also works differently as well. Book of the Dead is now costs 100 points, which is 50 in the old way. And whenever the wearer successfully casts an augment spell from Evocation, other than Evocation of Souls, so it doesn't double up on the Evocation of Souls. You can't get 2 heals from the Evocation of Souls. What it does is it raises the wounds equal to the evoked value. So it works like our old Attribute of Sands used to work. And the fact that we have to pay for that now, it kind of hurts. I really do miss Path of Sands. I miss our old magic. I'm not going to lie. But we'll see how it goes. Oh, here we go. Army organization. They changed up how armies are organized now. Now you don't have like a rare section and things like that. Instead, they broke it up into things like, as you see here, and it's different for each army. Entombed units are units with underground ambush, and we can only have max 25%, so no more all underground all the time here. Colossal constructs, max 30% of the army. Range support, max 35% of the army. And range support is stuff like our archers, our catapults, and things like that. Bow-wielding Shabti, if anyone ever takes that. Colossal constructs are things like our kitties, our colossi, and funnily enough, winged reapers are now in that section. They made a few choices that I'm not sure I agree with. But I'll have to see how it goes. The character limits max 35% instead of the old max 50%, but most of us didn't really bring that many characters. I guess it might hurt a couple Death Star builds for Terracotta, but still, I'm not seeing a big deal with that. Core is the same as it ever was. Um, so yeah, the big change here is the Colossal Construct. I think that's going to be affect armies the most. And keep in mind, the new points value, the official quote-unquote points value is now 4,500 points, or in translated into 1.1 terms, 2,250 points. Whether you want to play with that or stick to the old 2,500 point, 5,000 point now limit, entirely up to you. I'm honestly not sure what I'm going to do. I am very much a believer in playing what the people around me want to play. So if they want to do 5,000, I'll do 5,000. If they want to throw down with the new official 4,500, I'll do that too. I'm flexible. It's what I do. I enjoy list building, and the lesser points kind of is interesting to build within because it limits choices, which creates a few interesting decisions. It does tend to make things skew, like you tend to skew into certain specialties with that. You can't flesh out your army as well, but again, people will have different preferences on this. The stated reason they reduced the standard point value to 4,500 was in order to speed up the game. I don't know if that will accomplish that, but it is not my place to decide. It is not for me to question why. It is for me to do and die. Well, die again? I'm not sure. Let's go into the list itself. Again, they combined the profiles, so now instead of a lord or a hero choice, they're all character choices. Really no points increases except for to a couple of our mounts. To all the mounts, I think, actually. What is interesting is we are reduced in leadership. So leadership across the board, almost every army I've seen has taken at least a hit of, like, at least gotten -1 to whatever their highest leadership was before. I haven't looked through all the army books, but this is what I'm seeing. And honestly, guys, that's a great thing for us. We have a lot of things that deal with leadership, such as fear, such as the casket, such as skull catapults with the -1 leadership test dealio. So all in all, it just was a kind of a big power boost to us in general, and I'm not sure that was necessary for us. I think we were in a good place before, but I think we're in a better place now, simply because of that basic rule change. Now, high elves are still going to give you a lot of troubles with leadership and things like that, but most armies won't now. And so you still got to watch out for the frenzy and the ITP and unbreakables, but there you go. All in all, this will be very good for us. And yeah, we lost leadership too, but when are you using your leadership, honestly? Swift reform, you don't test a swift reform now. That's a basic rulebook change. You're a musician. If you have a musician unit, it allows you to automatically do it. And to me, that increased the values of musicians in our army by quite a bit. But anyway, so yeah, the Skeletal Horse, Chariot, and Sphinx went up in points, I believe. And the Sphinx went up in points because it included all the optional options they have now. Necromantic Aura and Lethal Strike, they just got bundled into it in the point cost. And again, the mount counts towards the Colossal Construct category, not to your character category. So, for example, If you spend the 420 points in Royal Sphinx, it won't count towards your 35% max in characters. It'll count towards your 30% max. I think it's 30%. Let's go check. Yes, 30% max in Colossal Constructs. I'm not seeing anyone taking the Royal Sphinx now. Not that a lot of people did before, but it's just a weaker version of the kitty. And if you're going to bring the kitty, if you're going to bring a Sphinx, you're going to bring the War Sphinx. Just hands down, I feel. And again, the options being bundled in like that, they do it to prevent people from becoming confused if the same model, if two instances of the same model have different options. And that's why they did it. So you can't say, oh, this one has Lethal Strike, oh, but this one doesn't. And because there's no way to really model that on the, easily at least. And so this was a change done across the board for the most part to eliminate options that cannot be modeled or to bundle them in with the points cost. I don't like it. I feel like it reduces the ability for me to make my army my own. I think it's too streamlined, but it is what they did, and we'll have to play with it as we go. I understand why they did it. I just disagree. So there you are. Okay, our Death Cult priests, our magicians, they went up in points by a lot, guys. So just a level 1, straight up level 1 spell, because you buy spell slots separately now, which is an interesting thing. You'll buy your mastery, or you can buy master, but that's separate from buying spell slots. So if you read it, first of all, our wounds went up to 3. But now, if you're a wizard master, it's an extra 200 points, or 100 as the case may be. But even then, the Death Cult Priest, the level 1 version that we all know and love, got increased in points. And the 3 spells we can learn from here are Evocation, Cosmology, and Divination. Now, Cosmology is interesting. Divination's probably the strongest lore out there right now. Evocation is crap, in my opinion. But that's my opinion. We still have the old Soul Conduit because they didn't fix Magic Flux, and that's unfortunate too. But the Soul Conduit's as always is a pretty good choice if you're going heavy magic. It works really well if you take a lot of bound spells, which we'll get to are pretty strong in our army now, I feel. We got some of the strongest bound spells that I've seen. They're a step up from what we had even. The Casket retained its spell, which I'm very surprised it did. And as you can read down here, the Arc of Ages got bound spells as well. Whispers of the Veil isn't bad. Truth of Time is pretty good. Hasten the Hour I'd never use. But, again, the Arc of Ages counts towards the Colossal Constructs category. So if you take this, you're taking less Colossi, you're taking less Winged Reapers, you're taking less Sphinxes, and no one wants to do that. This arc isn't any more attractive to me than it used to be. I have a really cool model for it. I really want to put it on the table, but I just can't justify it in any sort of competitive setting. And I like to play armies where I won't just dump points into stuff that's not gonna work. So while it's great for maybe a super fun sweetheart list, if you're organizing a tournament and you want to play because there's an uneven number of players and you just want people to punch on you so they feel better about themselves, that's how you do it. The ability to add learned spells, again, is interesting. I like the fact that they gave you more options here. I don't like the fact that um, that it's more points. So not only did they weaken magic, that they made it more expensive as well. But enough of that. Now would be a good time, I think, to go through the spells we have. And again, we have Evocation, Cosmology, and Divination. So let's look at those briefly. I won't go too much into it. Just remember that, sorry about this. Just remember that miscasts are now very, very deadly now. And that's an issue. And you have to keep that in mind. But again, let's just go straight through it and see what happens. Okay, so here's Cosmology, and its shtick, if you will, is duality. And I won't go again. You can see previews on the Magic sections and other videos out there. So I won't go too much into this. Basically, you get a counter when you cast a spell of the type, and you have Cosmos and Chaos, and you can see each spell down here has two versions: a circle looking thing, which is a Cosmos, and then a infinity symbol thing, and that's the Chaos. When you cast a Cosmos spell, you get a Cosmos counter, and that means the next time you cast a Cosmos spell, you will get a -2 to the casting value, which is really, really good. At the end of your Magic phase, if you still have a counter, you will replace that counter with its opposite. So if you have a Cosmos counter, it becomes a Chaos counter. So it's a little more paperwork, but it's an interesting concept. Let's look at the spells. The Weapon skill and Ballistic skill is amazing for us, and that's the signature, and you want that. I think that's probably one of the better spells in here. Touch the Heart. This is a small healing or automatic wound. It's okay. Yeah, Mind Games, and again with the leadership reductions across the board, if you can get that we have no use for the +1 leadership, but the -1 leadership, it's pretty powerful. If you hit someone with that before you hit them with a casket, for example, it's pretty scary. Pretty scary for them. The range is kind of limited, and like you'll see, the highest range in here is 24 inches, but almost all the spells are 18 inches, and that's, it's an issue, but it's not insurmountable. Truth of Time, you either slow someone down or speed them up. Ice and Fire is an interesting one. You can either do flaming attacks to get rid of regen or armor piercing attacks. Again, it's a pretty decent spell. 2d6 strength 3 hits. It's not gonna. It'll wipe out chaff, and it'll threaten heavy armored stuff with the armor piercing version. It's not bad. Perception of Strength is and the Unity and Divergence, you can, if they have a horde of low toughness stuff that every model takes a strength 3 hit, is pretty powerful, I feel. The all models get a ward save 5 up is okay. All in all, it's a decent lore. I think the stars here are the +1 ballista skill. Give that to your archers. The -1 leadership, that's great, and then the Ice and Fire is amazing as well. The others are pretty good too. There's not like this is a decent lore. I say Magic got nerfed across the board, but looking at this lore, it's almost to the power level, I think, of what we had. It's different, but there's definitely stuff you could do with this in our army. So that's nice. Divination is another one we got, and I feel that this is the most powerful lore out there right now. Conclave, for every other wizard, you get +3 range on your spells. The only issue is if you lose focus with one of the wizards, they're all lost focus until the end of the Magic phase. It has an attribute, Guiding Light. It basically gives you cold-blooded. We won't ever use this. There's no need for us to do this one. Scrying is the old shield of light, and that target gains hard target and distracting. It's a signature, guys. There's no reason not to take this with our army. Fate's Judgment. Target suffers D3 or D6 wounds that wound automatically. They get no ward save and no regen. They do get armor save, so it's great against monsters and things with low armor save, but maybe a ward or a regen and things. And these are automatically wounding, so they're very nice. Know thy enemy. You get +2 weapon skill, +2 initiative. It's a weaker version of the light, old lore light. Stars Align. If you use it in the aura version, it's just close combat attacks. But if you use the regular version, you can reroll your failed to hits with shooting. Smiting was better, but this is not bad. The casting cost is too high, I feel, but again, that just happens throughout the magic things. Everything got less power, harder to cast, lower range, things like that. Look to the West is an interesting spell. You get Stubborn and Immune to Psychology. Now, the ITP we don't care about, but making a skeletal block stubborn really, really helps in our crumbles. So if you stick a tar pit somewhere and you get one of their important units stuck in, you can keep them stuck in for a very, very long time with that spell. Unerring Strike is the star of the show here. Yes, it's a very large casting value, and yes, it's a relatively small range. But you have 2d6 or boosted 3d6 hits that wound on a 4+, have armor piercing 2, and are divine attack. So they're re-rolling those successful wards too. It's I think the best spell out there at the moment. It solves so many problems for us. You can get rid of chaff, you can get rid of monsters, you can get rid of characters. If you roll fairly well, any single target out there or small unit, and if you have nothing else, just throw it at a block and do a bunch of wounds, reduce them. Again, it's the best spell out there, I believe, at this time, and that's my personal opinion. Portent of Doom is an anti-Death Star spell. For every character in the unit, for every phase, they roll a d6 and +1. So if they have 2 characters, they'll roll 3d6. If they get even 1 6, they can't do certain things. So for example, in the Declare Charges phase, they can't charge. In the Moves phase, they can't march. In the Magic phase, they can't cast spells. In the Shooting phase, they can't shoot. They'd have to have a lot of characters for this to be worth it. It's the worst spell, I think, in this little group of spells here, but it is what it is. Let's find that evocation and go through it real quick. Now, trait spells are different. Trait spells are something that everyone gets. It's not a signature. It doesn't count towards your spell allotment. You'll just have it if you have the lore. Evocation of Souls. Okay, if you've been on the Vampire Counts forum recently, you know there's a big hue and cry over just the enormous nerf that the old Death lore got. And this is why the Evocation of Souls, the single target version is more, and then the aura version is significantly more. And again, it's just a thing to have to raise. Now, interesting side note, if you don't have if the model of your target doesn't have an evoked value, they gain fear and immune to psychology, which isn't bad at all. So just for non-undead mages that know evocation, it's not bad. But for evocation, for doing it what we used to do, again, it's not an attribute. It doesn't proc off of other spells. It's a spell you have to use dice specifically to heal. And it's an overall nerf. There's no two ways about it. Now, was invocation spam an issue? Yes, it was. But I don't think they needed to go so heavy-handed on it. Spectral Blades is pretty good for us. We have several lethal strike units in the army, so it's not bad. It works like our old Cursed Blades did. Ancestral Aid, reroll failed to hit rolls with close combat, and if you buff it, shooting as well. So that's nice. Again, the range is quite low though, so it is what it is. Touch of the Reaper. That's a pretty good spell actually. It's a focused one, so you can target characters out with it, and it goes off of the leadership. So there is that, and everything got a lower leadership now, so just keep that in mind. The range is, unless it's on the boosted version, the range is just very small. Dance Macabre. Now this is an interesting one. The range is small, but the aura effect, yeah, it's a huge casting value, but the aura effect is actually quite good. You get 8 magical move to everything within 12 inches that's friendly, and it counts as ethereal, so you can move through your own units, you can move through enemy units, you can move through anything you like as long as you don't stop in them. And just marching forward 8, getting this thing off, and going forward another 8, that's 16 inches. If you really need to get somewhere, I think this is a good spell. It's not something you can rely on at all, but it's decent. Whispers of the Veil, -1 leadership, -2 web skill. It remains in play. It's meh. The range is okay, but the casting value is very high. Then Hasten the Hour, I think, is one of the worst spells they got. It's 14 plus, so it's really hard to get off. It's only 12 inches. And what it does is every character and every champion in the target unit suffers a hit that wounds automatically with no saves of any kind. Now that sounds good till you realize that all characters are at least 3 wounds now. You're not going to get this off 3 times. It'll kill the champion, but whoop-de-doo. Never, ever, ever, ever take this spell. And if you have to take it, never cast it. There's just, it's not worth it at all. You will do more damage, more than likely, to yourself on the miscast than you'll ever do with this spell. The chances of you doing anything good with this spell are so niche. They'd have to have 1 wound left, or just not worth it. Okay, anyway, blah, blah, blah. Let's get back to what we want to see, the Undying Dynasties. Okay, so Arc of Ages, we've been through that. Harbinger got a points hike. And again, the leadership went down, the wounds went up. All in all, it's still going to do what you want it to do. Give hatred. It's still nice. Tomb Architect got a hike in points, and no longer can we take the Mason's Menagerie. So that's sad, and it's a reduction in types of lists. But it was quite powerful at 50 points, or 100 points would be the new value. Now they did combine Master Mason into the spell. It's no longer a choice you can make. You have to do it. And again, that just limits customization of the army, which I personally do not like. And so now it's still useful. It's still really good, but it's something you'll have to put a little more thought to. Now, Casket of Fatep, that's a character? Apparently it's a character now. You can only take a max of 2, which is unfortunate, because I don't know, I was tempted when I saw all the leadership decreases to take a mage with Soul Conduit and just go to town with like 3 or 4 of these guys. But alas, probably not the most effective use of points out there, but it would have been funny. So yeah, it's a Fatep's Curse does what the old Divine Judgment used to do. It's lower toughness but higher wounds. So, and still got that ward save. So, I mean, it's pretty good for what it does. It's still got the Divine Light that does the enemy wizards. It still explodes. It still helps you to channel. So yeah, it's not a character, even though it counts towards the characters category. A lot of people didn't like Casket. I think a lot of people are going to take more Caskets now, just for the leadership decreases that's been made. I've always liked Casket just for the Divine Light ability, and I felt the curse was just a bonus. And it's all how you use it. So that's an interesting change. Okay, mounts. Everything that could get barding now has to have barding, pretty much. Skeletal horse has barding. Okay. Chariots are all now, what's it called? Light troops. Let's go into core. Core won't look too different for you. Instead of having to take a banner to be scoring, you're either scoring or you're not, if you notice the special rule right here. And once again, you'll look at the evoked value. They've all gone up. All gone up across the board. No points increases here. Standard skeleton archer. Now, skeletal archer will count towards your range support as well, but in most lists it won't be an issue. They do what they have always done. They're also scoring, so that's nice too. Musician's more tempting now because you don't have to test to reform, you just do it. So just keep that in mind. Now, cavalry got split into two different models, and again, this is so that you don't get options. You can either take the cavalry, in which case you get all the options you used to have to choose. You just get them. They lost light troops, you lost scout, still got vanguard, and they're scoring. So, you know, it's a nice little scoring unit. They're not bad. It's something you can hide and just pop out. Or if you want to take a standard on it, because standards now stack. So, for example, if you have 3 standards in a combat, you'll get +3 instead of just +1 for having a standard. So that's an interesting way to do it. I still wouldn't charge these anything into any combat with anything but skeletons. They're 4-up, armor safe, toughness 3. You can raise 5 of them. Again, I don't see them being any more than just something you hide or last minute chaff. So that's nice. Skeletal cavalry archers, again, they count towards your range support as well as core, so keep that in mind. But the basic, same as it ever was. So you don't get to choose all the light armor and stuff like that. You just take Vanguard Scout and their light troops, so that's nice. It's good chaff. Chariot's got a point increase. And now they have to be light troops. You can't make them scoring. I don't know. And because they're light troops and you won't get those rank bonuses anymore for having additional ranks to get additional strength on the charge, I don't think there's any reason to take more than 3. It just is what it is. It's not a bad nerf. I'll still take them. And I'll still use them how I used to use them, is just protecting my back line and going up the flank. So there you go. Okay, specials. There's no limit on our specials. No limits. Necro Guard or Necro Guard. They have scoring. They do what Necro Guard have always done. If you liked them before, you'll like them now. Cataphracts also are a scoring unit. The evoked value on all our constructs went up, so instead of healing just 1, they heal 2 now, which is nice. You can only have 3 of these per army, max, and if you ambush them, now instead of just paying 20, it would be 40 points now, you're paying 20 points a model, so it's more expensive to ambush these guys now. They're our highest armor save unit in our army, and so they have a place there. But they're never going to win a straight up fight. Best use is probably to just ambush them underground. Still, I mean, it is what it is. That's what they are. It's what they do. I still run 2 groups of 4 that don't ambush because I felt that underground ambush was too flaky, and they would never show up when I needed them to. But they were still, they're a solid unit to just get in the flank of something, or to hold some, or to eat a weaker unit, but they're not a main combat unit by any means, I don't feel. But they work about the same as they did. Shabties. If you give them bows, they are now count towards the range support category. So just keep that in mind if you ever were thinking of doing that. They are scoring, and they work exactly how they worked before, which honestly is an indirect buff because almost everything else got reduced in some manner, but Shabties are still very strong. And Great Vultures, same as they ever were. Okay, some direct range support here. We got Stalkers. Again, they're more expensive to ambush now. Instead of just paying for the unit, you're paying 20 per model. Yeah. And also, a basic rule change that kind of hurts these guys a lot is that you test on the rider of a monster instead of the monster's initiative. So almost all cases the initiatives went up, and it's harder to wound now. They're not bad still. They'll do what you need them to do, and you can single target war machines. You can single target monsters and still manage to do a few wounds, but you're not going to do as many as you were able to before. So just keep that in mind. Apparently it was an issue. I didn't take these guys very much, but is what it is. Catapults. Oh my goodness. Catapults are so good now. I'm not going to lie. Yeah, I got a point increase, but being able to fire in both ways, either for the multiple wound center hit or for the -1 leadership panic test for 1 wound with a bigger template, the flexibility that gives you is just amazing. I really like this change. I don't know if I'll be able to fit it into my list because I don't know if I'll want to play the gun line style thing. And keep in mind, catapults, you fire them, they all go off your ballistic skill. You won't get any penalties to shoot. So no penalties from having cover or whatnot. No penalties for distracting even. So you're hitting on a 5+, and you get to, if you miss the first time, you roll again, and you hit at a lesser strength, and I'm not sure exactly the ratio there. But as you look at it, use catapult 4. What that means is you hit a 4x4 square. So if they have a models, that's usually 16 models if they have enough models. The big version's catapult 6. That's a lot of models right there. It's a 6x6 area. It's, if I'm doing my math correctly, it's 36 inches or 36 models. You can really mess up hordes with that. And the range on that went down a little bit, but 48-inch ranges is more than enough. More than enough. And again, the big thing is a test at a -1 leadership. And with leaderships reduced across the board, it's going to hurt. Especially if you combine that with any other minuses you have from spells or whatnot. So, awesome there. Entombed, you got Scarab Swarms. They do what Scarab Swarms do. You got Sand Scorpions. Now, Sand Scorpions actually went up in points. Not by much. Or actually, no. Sand Scorpions did not receive an increase. No, they did. They used to be 85, which would be 170 now. So they went up 20 points. Not sure why. I mean, they're good. They're good. They're good chaff, and they can eat enemy bunkers and war machines and things like that fairly well. But I don't know if that was justified, but it is what it is. Okay. Colossal Constructs. And here we go with the kitty. Now, the options were taken away from him. He no longer has the options to take innate defense 4 or breath weapon. Now he has to. But he did go down slightly in points if you took both options. So it used to be 220 base. If you took Flaming Breath, it was 245, which would be 490 in the current system. And if you didn't take at least breath on a kitty, you were playing it wrong. So all in all, that's a pretty good buff for us. I like it. I like it a lot. Yeah, with the max 30% though, and the 0 to 3 per army, if you're playing at the standard 4,500 points, it's not going to fit. Now, this isn't the final version. This is a preview version, so just keep that in mind. You have Dread Sphinx. It actually went up in points. Again, I don't know why they would do that. I never took it. I don't know of anyone else who ever took it. But there it is. So, Winged Reapers are now in this category, competing for points with the kitty. And it's, again, they did away with Necromantic Aura. You can't even have it. And Autonomous is automatic now, and Light Armor is automatic now. Actually, it looks like Light Armor's just out completely, if I'm reading this right. So, unfortunate. The points got a little different, and paired weapons went up significantly. So all in all, a nerf to this unit, but not a very big one. You can only have 0 to 6 models per army, so you can't run 2 groups of 4, for example. Colossus. Now this is an interesting choice now. The points were increased a little bit, but you can only take 1 bow colossi now. It's only 1 per army. Scales is different now because the bound spells are different, and it has 2 of them, so you can cast both of them in a single turn. And Touch of the Heart and Ice and Fire. And remember what those do. Touch the Heart, and let's bring it up just so we can see. Oh, ignore that. Let's bring it up just so you can see real quick. Oh, Touch the Heart. There we go. Oh no, I went too far. I went too far. My computer's being slow. Excuse me. Okay, Touch the Heart is you can either use it to recover a wound, which is nice, or you can deal 1 automatic wound on a single target, which is pretty dang good for sniping out characters. It's not as good as it used to be, but still, if you're within range, it's 18 inches, you might as well, and you have some dice, throw it at it, see what happens. Or if you need to heal yourself, you can. Then you have also Ice and Fire, which again, 2d6 strength 3 with either armor piercing or flaming, and that is pretty damn good. Now let's go back to the document here. So Scales of Destiny is now a really strong pick, I feel. Paired weapons is still strong as well. Great weapon. I mean, if you need strength 8, it's there. So just keep that in mind. It's still a strong choice, even with the point increase. But again, it's competing for kitty points now, and I don't know if I can do that. So there's just an overview. If you want to take a quick pause here and just look through it, you may. There's a change log. And that, my friends, is that. Hey, thanks for watching. I'm glad I got to point this out to you. And again, you can go through it, and the quality should be good enough that you can see all the points, and you can start messing with your list if you're really eager to start doing that. It should be out sometime tomorrow. So this isn't a very big preview, but it's there, guys. So I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks.